Hi guys, sorry to interrupt your viewing, but please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you.
It was just past 7 in the evening, and my Aunt Carol had decided that plastic champagne flutes and lukewarm Prosecco would make our backyard family reunion feel festive, as she called it, even though we were sweating through our t-shirts in 89-degree heat, sitting in rusty folding chairs that had seen more birthdays than any of us. The whole family was there. Well, everyone who mattered, I guess. Uncles, cousins, family friends who somehow keep getting invited to these things every year, even though no one remembers exactly who they're related to. The grill was going, someone had brought a Bluetooth speaker blasting classic rock, and the kids were running around tossing water balloons at anyone who wasn't fast enough to move. It should have been a regular summer reunion. Nothing special. No drama. But then David had to open his damn mouth. Now, my brother David is the kind of guy who walks into a room like it owes him money. He's the golden child, the one who married a woman that looks like she belongs in a catalog and bought a 3-story house by the lake at age 32, all while somehow convincing everyone he built his business from scratch. Even though I know for a fact Dad gave him the startup money. He's got that slick confidence that people mistake for charm, and every time he throws a little jab my way, everyone chuckles like it's just part of the family tradition. Because I'm the other one. The quiet one. The disappointment. So when he stood up on the picnic table, beer in hand, eyes already glassy from the 3 or 4 pre-toasts he made with Uncle Rick, I should have known it was coming. Everyone gathered around like he was delivering the Sermon on the Mount. I stood in the back, near the cooler, already dreading what was about to come out of his mouth. He tapped the side of his can with a fork for attention, like he was emceeing a damn wedding. I just want to say, he started, grinning like he'd rehearsed this in the mirror all morning. Family is everything. We may not be perfect, but we've got history, we've got love, and we've got, well, even our disappointments bring something to the table. Laughter erupted. Actual, full-on laughter. Aunt Carol did that thing where she clutches her chest like she's about to faint from joy. Even Mom laughed, though hers sounded a little tighter, a little more forced. I locked eyes with Dad for half a second. He looked away like he didn't hear it. But I did. Everyone did. Because he raised his can and added, "So let's raise a glass to the family disappointment." And everyone raised their drinks. Everyone. Even the ones who claim to stay out of the drama. Even the ones who send me birthday texts with too many heart emojis. Even Mom. I didn't say anything. I didn't storm off. I didn't cry. I just poured myself a fresh drink from the cooler, something strong, whatever was coldest, and walked away like I was headed for the bathroom. I didn't come back. Instead, I sat in my car for almost an hour, parked 3 blocks away, because there wasn't enough room out front thanks to all the SUVs and pickups clogging the street. I just sat there, drink in hand, staring at my phone, watching the ice melt into the cup holder. And the whole time, I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry. I was calm. Like bone-deep calm. The kind of calm you feel right before doing something you know you can't take back. At around 10:30, I got home, changed into sweats, poured another drink, whiskey this time, and opened Facebook. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a bit, but it didn't take long. The words came easy. I didn't rant. I didn't call names. I didn't post anything untrue. I just laid it all out. 6 paragraphs. A lifetime's worth of being the joke, the scapegoat, the one they whisper about when I leave the room. I mentioned the time David broke Dad's watch and blamed me. I brought up the job interview I missed in college because someone forgot to give me the message. I casually pointed out that David's self-made company used my credit score for the initial business loan, and when it defaulted the first year, guess who got the bill notices? Yeah, that was me. But I didn't stop there. I tagged people. I mentioned names. I uploaded screenshots. I didn't shout or curse or make threats. I made it sound like I was just getting a few things off my chest, the way people do after a long day and a couple of stiff drinks. But the people who read it, they knew. They felt the tone under the words. That quiet rage simmering just under the surface. The kind of rage that isn't loud, but lethal. I posted it at 11:15 p.m. At 1:12 a.m., I had 5 missed calls. By 2:30, that number was up to 16. Most from family. 1 from my brother's wife. 2 from friends who just wanted to say, "Holy crap, are you okay?" I ignored them all. Then, at 3:05 in the morning, my phone lit up again. It was Mom. I didn't answer, but I saw the message she left. One single sentence. "Why would you do this?" And all I could think was, why did it take this long for you to ask? By the time I got out of bed the next morning, the post had already done more damage than I imagined possible in under 12 hours, and it hadn't even caught fire yet. It was still smoldering, creeping into the cracks of the family like a slow leak of gas before the inevitable spark. Notifications lit up my phone screen like a slot machine jackpot, the ding-ding-ding of guilt and outrage coming from every direction, like each vibration was someone else waking up, reading it, and realizing they had been either part of the lie or too close to it for comfort. I wasn't checking for likes or reactions. I didn't need the dopamine rush people chase online. I wanted consequences, silence, and shame, and I got all 3 by breakfast. I know people expected me to post something messy, maybe emotional, a heat of the moment word dump after getting embarrassed by David in front of the whole extended clan, but that's not what I gave them. I'd had years to collect receipts, and I didn't even know I was doing it. Every email he forwarded without scrubbing the sensitive parts, every time he slipped up in a text, every instance someone used me as a shield while they ducked behind my bad reputation, I filed it away, like a squirrel with a grudge. So the post wasn't a rant, not even close. It started casual, maybe too casual, like I was just updating people on my mental health or maybe giving them a story about self-reflection. That's how I hooked them, because the first paragraph wasn't about David at all. It was about me. About how being called the family disappointment wasn't new, but it stung a little deeper when people didn't even pretend to hide it anymore. I said it with that breezy, passive-aggressive tone that makes people lean in and wonder, wait, is this about me? Then I dropped the first breadcrumb. I mentioned the time I accidentally got blamed for something going missing from Dad's office safe back in college, a little money, some old documents, nothing dramatic, except it was never me. I had proof. Screenshots from a decade ago of David begging me not to say anything, saying he'd pay me back, that it was a one-time thing, and Mom would freak out if she knew. I had that message saved so long it moved phones with me, 3 phones ago. Then came the bigger drop. That time David took out a small business loan under his name, but needed a co-signer with decent credit. His wife, Rachel, was already over-leveraged on her own side hustle, and their assets were too new to qualify for the bank's backing. So he came to me, the loser, the deadbeat, and asked if I'd help him out. Said it was temporary, said he'd make the payments himself. I was 24, desperate for approval, and still believed if I helped him win, maybe he'd bring me along for the ride. Of course, he didn't make the payments. And of course, my credit tanked. And of course, when people asked what happened to that business, everyone heard it was mine. Well, you know how they are with money, Dad had said once, not knowing I was just out of earshot. I posted all of that with dates, copies of letters from the debt collectors, and, my personal favorite, a photo of a birthday card David sent me years later with $50 inside and the message, "Sorry about everything, hope this helps." I took a photo of the card, folded open, bill halfway out. That's when the comment section started heating up. People were shocked. But I wasn't done. Not even close. So yeah, I wrote in the next paragraph, keeping the tone light like I was just chatting with friends over coffee. I tagged my cousin Lisa and her finance in the post, thinking they should know David slept with her during his bachelor party. That was the line that made the post explode. Not because of what I said, but because I accidentally wrote finance instead of fiancé. People jumped on it immediately, correcting me, mocking the typo, making memes out of it. Lisa's finance better watch his bank account, someone wrote. Is her finance a CPA or just a dude who doesn't know what's coming? Another chimed in. The comments turned the post viral inside the family group and started leaking into friend circles, even coworkers. But the actual story underneath that typo? That was what really did the damage. Lisa had been engaged to her fiancé, Mark, for over a year now. They'd postponed their wedding twice, once for the pandemic, once because Mark's mother had a health scare. Everyone in the family loved them together. They were the golden couple, the ones people pointed at as the example when talking about how to make it work. But nobody knew that David, drunk, cocky, and invincible the night before his own wedding, had hooked up with Lisa in a hotel hallway while Rachel was asleep 3 floors up. And the only reason I knew was because he told me. Not in confidence. Not in shame. He bragged about it. Laughed. Said it was technically before he said I do. That makes it okay, right? And he made me promise not to say anything. Said it would ruin everything. Said it was just a bro moment and besides, Lisa was cool with it. I never believed that. But I didn't say anything for years. Not until now. The reactions were split. Half the people were calling me a liar, a bitter spinster trying to burn down the house because I couldn't build my own. The other half went silent, the kind of silence that comes from people scrolling, reading, and thinking, wait, what else don't I know? I watched the view count on the post tick upward, slow but steady. Messages rolled in. Some furious, some apologetic, a few pretending to be concerned. But the one that stuck out to me was from Lisa herself. 3 words. You fucking knew? I didn't reply. Because what would I even say? I wasn't the one who cheated. But guess who took the blame for it back in college? The funny thing about being labeled the screw-up in the family is that after a while, people stop checking to see if anything's actually your fault. They just assume it is, because that's easier than reevaluating the story they've already told themselves 1,000 times. I didn't understand how deep that narrative had sunk in until the hours after that post, when silence from some corners of the family felt louder than the outrage from others. It was as if my words had cracked the surface of something that had been glossed over with years of tradition and obligation, and now people were staring into the rot they'd helped cover up. The real twist was how many of them already knew the truth, or at least pieces of it. I started getting quiet messages, some in DMs, some in texts, from cousins, second cousins, even 2 of my dad's old friends who were at that reunion. Most of them didn't say anything bold, nothing that would look like betrayal on paper. Just subtle acknowledgments, vague apologies, things like, I always thought something didn't add up, or I figured you had your reasons for stepping back. One even said, honestly, I've always hated how they treat you, but I didn't want to get involved. Translation, I saw it happening and did nothing because it wasn't happening to me. That silence? It stung worse than the mockery. It took me back to the day I lost my first real job out of college. I had landed a position through a friend of a friend, something solid and stable with potential to grow. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I was 2 weeks in, learning the ropes, excited in a way I hadn't been in years. And then, one morning, I was pulled into HR. They showed me a printout of an email chain, internal correspondence between management where someone had flagged a concerning email sent from my personal account. Except it wasn't me who sent it. It was a forwarded thread with jokes, memes, and a not-so-subtle racial slur tucked in the middle. I never sent it, never even saw it before that moment. But it was from my email address, and that was all that mattered. It took me a full day to realize what had happened. I'd let David borrow my old laptop a month before when his was in the shop. He'd needed it for a quick pitch deck, something he couldn't miss. I didn't think twice. But I never changed my passwords after that. Never even suspected he'd left himself logged in or snooped around in my accounts. I don't know if it was a mistake or on purpose. He never admitted anything, of course. When I confronted him, he swore up and down he had no idea what I was talking about, got defensive, then turned it on me like he always did. Why would I sabotage you? What would I even gain from that? I don't know, David. Maybe you just liked having someone to blame when the walls started closing in. I lost the job. Never got an apology. Dad told me maybe it was a lesson in being more careful with what I send from professional accounts. Mom cried but said she didn't want to choose sides. And just like that, another page in the book of why I couldn't get it together was written, with my name on it in ink. And that was just one story. There were so many more. Little things, medium-sized betrayals, and a few I hadn't even realized were connected to him until years later. Like when I got denied a car loan because my credit was still recovering from his failed startup. Or when Mom started telling people at church that I liked to be independent because I couldn't show up to holidays, never mentioning it was because I couldn't afford the gas to drive home anymore. Or when Dad told Uncle Rick I'd messed around in college too much, which is why I didn't graduate on time. Even though it was David who wrecked my car during finals week and left me to deal with the insurance nightmare while he disappeared on a last-minute trip to Miami. They knew. Maybe not all the details, but they knew something wasn't right. And they let it go because it was easier to believe I was just a mess. That way, they didn't have to challenge the image of David they clung to like it was gospel. So when I started hearing people say, "This explains so much," it didn't feel like justice. It felt like too little, too late. Like someone calling the fire department after watching the house burn down for 4 straight hours, then clapping when the flames finally go out. But I wasn't done. I still had one more thing to post. Something that would rip the shiny, smug mask off David's perfect little life once and for all, something even he wouldn't be able to charm his way out of. The kind of secret that doesn't just ruin relationships, it poisons legacies. And the best part? It wasn't even my secret to tell. The first post cracked the surface. Sure, it peeled back the thin layer of politeness that held the family together like glue on a broken plate and exposed the ugly little truths everyone tried to ignore. But the second post was the one that would make sure no one ever forgot again. I didn't even wait a full day after the first one blew up. I knew timing mattered. The family was still talking, still arguing, still trying to figure out whether I was having a meltdown or staging some kind of slow-motion coup. The group chat was imploding, texts were flying, cousins were taking sides, and a few were conveniently taking a break from social media right around the time it became clear neutrality wasn't an option anymore. But I wasn't done telling the truth, not by a long shot. So I sat down, late afternoon sunlight streaming in through the window, a half-eaten sandwich next to me, and a headache throbbing right between my eyes. I opened Facebook again, that cursed arena where this whole mess had taken shape, and I started typing. This time, I didn't bother easing people in. I didn't write a gentle intro or try to sound reflective. I hit them with it in the first sentence like a slap to the mouth. I'm tired of pretending David built something from nothing. The truth is, his business was a fraud from the start, and if you don't believe me, keep reading. The comments hadn't even stopped rolling in on my last post, and here I was dropping another one like gasoline on embers. But this was bigger. This wasn't about stolen credit or broken promises or being the family scapegoat. This was about money. Real money. And in our family, you could screw up just about anything: marriage, school, sobriety, but money was sacred. Money was the last defense against shame. I explained how David's first business, the one he bragged about at every holiday gathering and had splashed across LinkedIn like he was the next Elon Musk, didn't start with grit and hustle. It started with shady paperwork and one very gullible great-uncle with early signs of dementia. I knew this because I was there when the loan application came in the mail, and David asked me to help proofread it. Only the name on the loan wasn't his, it was Uncle Neil's. The signature? A photocopy. The account numbers? Pulled from an old checkbook David found in a storage bin after Neil moved into assisted living. I told him it was a terrible idea. He laughed, said it was technically borrowing from the family, and Neil wouldn't even notice. Besides, he said, I'll pay it back before he even realizes it's gone. But he didn't. And Uncle Neil never saw that money again. I didn't say anything back then. I wish I could say it was because I was scared, or confused, or waiting for the right time. But honestly, I just didn't want to deal with the storm that would come if I did. I already knew how it would play out. David would spin it, Dad would defend it, and I'd come out looking like the bitter one again. So I let it rot in my gut for years. But now I put it all in the post. I listed every suspicious business expense, every family member who got quietly tapped for loans that were never repaid, every time David used our family name to bluff his way through a pitch meeting. I mentioned how he once opened a line of credit using Mom's social without her knowing, and when she found out, She begged me not to tell Dad. Said it would destroy him. Said David promised he'd fix it. Spoiler alert, he didn't. I ended that section with a single line, and that's how the golden boy built his empire, on other people's backs and signatures. Within 15 minutes of posting it, my phone blew up like a Vegas slot machine on a lucky day. Missed calls. New messages. Screenshots being shared back to me, like I hadn't written the damn thing myself. But the part that really got me, the part that told me it had struck a nerve, was when Mom called. Not to yell. Not to cry. But to explain. She started soft, like she always does when she's cornered. Said things were complicated. Said David had always meant well. That families protect each other, and digging up old wounds didn't help anyone heal. I let her talk for a full 5 minutes before I even breathed. Then I asked her one question. Did you know about Uncle Neil? She didn't answer. Not right away. There was a long pause, the kind that tells you everything you need to know without a single word. Then, in a voice so low I barely heard it, she said, "He told me it was temporary." And just like that, I realized she wasn't defending him because she didn't know. She was defending him because she did. That was when Uncle Rick chimed in. He must have been drunk again because he started commenting directly on the post, real time, like it was a Reddit AMA. He confirmed things I hadn't even mentioned, things I hadn't dared say because I didn't have proof, just suspicion. Like how David had once asked Rick to hold some money in his personal account to avoid tax reporting. Or how David had bragged at a wedding reception that he had dirt on a local contractor and used it to get free renovations on his office space. Rick typed it all out like he'd been waiting for someone to give him permission to speak freely. And people listened. That post got more engagement in 2 hours than anything I'd ever put online in my life. And for the first time, the tide shifted. I wasn't just the angry sibling anymore. I was the whistleblower, the truth teller. And David? David started to sweat. Because when I tell you the family chat went dead silent after that, I mean silent. No clever comebacks. No moral lectures. No, but he's family defenses. Just radio silence. Until Dad spoke up. Not in a text. Not in a call. But in a comment. One sentence. And what he said made the room go dead silent. There's a kind of stillness that follows a family implosion, the same way the air feels thick and humid after a tornado has passed through, broken things lying everywhere, silence settling in like a fog, and everyone pretending the world didn't just shift a few inches off its axis. That's where we were the morning after my second post detonated the last bits of family denial like a hand grenade at a Sunday picnic. The notifications slowed down a little, like the adrenaline wore off, but the tension didn't. Because that one comment from my father, that single sentence buried near the bottom of my post thread, was louder than everything that had come before it. I always knew, he wrote. Just 3 words. Cold. Flat. Final. That comment came like a thunderclap in the group chat. The man who'd barely spoken up during arguments, who never took a side unless it was David's, who told me more than once that boys will be boys when I brought up the little injustices, he just laid it out. No explanation. No follow-up. No apology. Just confirmation. He knew. He always knew. And that opened a new wound I didn't even realize I had. Because if he knew, then every time he defended David, every time he looked me in the eye and asked why I couldn't be more like him, every time he dismissed my side of the story like I was being dramatic, it wasn't ignorance. It was indifference. And I wasn't just the disappointment, I was the decoy. The one they pointed to so no one would look too closely at the favorite son's rot. It made me think back to something I hadn't remembered in years. When I was a kid, maybe 10 or 11, my grandmother used to take me into her sewing room when things got loud at family parties. She'd pull out these dusty old scrapbooks and tell me stories about her parents, her brothers, the house she grew up in, and how nothing, not war, not poverty, not betrayal, ever tore their family apart. She said it like a mantra, like a warning. She always spoke softly, but with a seriousness that made you listen whether you wanted to or not. When she passed, I didn't inherit much. A small wooden box of odds and ends, some costume jewelry, and a few handwritten recipes that nobody could decipher. At the time, I didn't think much of it. David got the house, the car, the savings. Mom said it was because he had a family of his own to support, and I was still figuring things out. Maybe next time, she said like it was a raffle. But a week ago, before all this started, I found that little wooden box again, buried in the back of my closet where I'd thrown it years ago. I was looking for an old phone charger, not some forgotten heirloom. The hinges had rusted slightly, and the lock had long since broken, so it opened with a soft creak, the way old things tend to sound when they know they haven't been touched in a while. Inside, beneath the cracked pearls and curled-up letters, was something I had never noticed before, a folded envelope with my name written in her perfect, looping cursive. No date, no postage, just my name. I didn't open it right away. Maybe some part of me sensed what was inside wouldn't be light. I waited until after David's second mask had been ripped off in public, after the family started choosing sides and rewriting their own histories to avoid accountability. When I finally opened it, my hands were shaking not from nerves, but from the kind of dread that comes when you know your foundation is about to shift forever. The letter wasn't long, but every sentence hit like a freight train. She wrote about David. Not directly, not by name at first, but it was clear who she meant. She said she'd seen through him early on, charming on the outside, slippery underneath. She mentioned the way he lied about small things, even as a child, how he took credit for other people's ideas and laughed when he got away with it. She said the family loved their illusions too much to confront him, so they picked someone else to carry the blame whenever things went wrong. Someone quiet. Someone patient. Someone who wouldn't fight back. She said, "I wanted you to know I saw it. I saw you. And I'm sorry I didn't do more when I was here." I stared at that letter until the words blurred. My throat felt tight, like I'd swallowed gravel. Because as much as I needed to hear those words, I also hated them, hated how familiar that pattern was. The seeing, the knowing, the doing nothing. That letter was the final nail. Not in David's coffin, he'd buried himself, but in the illusion that I had ever just been unlucky or misunderstood or the cause of my own spiral. I had been cast, assigned a role, made into a scapegoat so David could keep shining without having to wipe off the mud on his boots. So I posted the letter. Not the whole thing, just a photo of the envelope, with my name in her handwriting, and one quote from the body. They picked someone else to carry the blame. No context. No caption. Let people read into it what they would. Some would get it immediately. Others would sit with it for days, uncomfortable in the silence. And that was the final blow. David deleted his social media within 2 hours. Rachel posted a vague, taking time to focus on our family update. My mom hasn't called me since. A few of my cousins sent texts that read more like peace offerings than actual apologies. One even asked if I was planning to keep going or if it was over now. I didn't answer. Because here's the thing, there was never a plan. This wasn't a campaign. It was a release. A pressure valve finally giving way after years of being twisted tighter and tighter. And if they're all rattled now, if they're calling, texting, trying to patch things up, well, they're about a decade too late. So yeah, they're all calling me now. Too late. The real disappointment? That it took this long for them to see it.